All right, so we've already covered two kinds of victory checks. Let's get up to that routine here. So the vertical victory check. For each column, we scan down and keep track of if we find more things in a row. Likewise, for horizontal victory checks, in each row, we scan it from left to right and see if we find four things of the same color in a row, right? From the same player. So the upper left to lower right, that's going to be similar. If we think about how our game board is, all right, for the victory conditions, basically, upper left to lower right, we're going to have a few possibilities like this, right? And we're going to only be interested in the cases where we can do four in a row. But in all these longer diagonals, those are the ones we're going to have to check. So where we can start having four in a row is any place, right? We know we have 6 rows and we have 7 columns. So we're going to try to design this application, these victory checks, in a way that it'll be easy to change if we, for example, want to allow a larger game board. Okay, so what we'll do, starting in column 0, right, starting in the left column, check for any row that, what? That is at least 3 above the last column, right? So basically that is for any row R where R is less than rows minus 3. Okay, so for example, I guess rows minus 4 will have to be because rows, yeah, I'm going to get rid of you and put in a 4. So let's draw this out. By drawing it out, then we won't have to puzzle it out in the debugging process. So we know our rows. All right, we have row 0, row 1, row 2, row 3, row 4, row 5. Okay? Oop, I did a percent there instead. That's fine. So we have 6 rows. Rows equal 6. So anywhere where the row value is 4 less than the max rows, that's where we start. Okay, and then we're going to go along here, and then for the various columns, it didn't want to work. I guess I'm going to have to do these separately. Okay, column C1. I'm going to put this one in the middle, C3. It'll be a little bit easier to draw it. C2, C4, C5, and C6. So any of these columns, we're going to continue until the number of columns is 4 less than, continue along columns as long as column, right, C, as long as column C is less than columns minus 4. Okay, so these are the places where we want to start from, is basically some subset like this, right? These are the legit starting points where we could actually find 4 in a row. Right? For example, if we start from down here, there's no point, right? We're not going to be able to find 4 in a row starting from here. Okay. Likewise, for the lower left to upper right, similar kind of thing. We're going to start in these rows going up. All right? And there's a couple different ways we're going to do it, but I'm going to code this to be, okay, since we're in a time situation, I will code this to be quick to code as opposed to what? As opposed to elegant, right? I mean, I could code it in a more elegant way, but instead I'm just going to do, these are my starting points, and I'm going to scan through every one of those, okay? So that's what we'll do here. So for upper left to lower right, we're going to start here. We're going to say, so for int I equals 0, so I is going to be the row, okay, and we'll do this while I is less than rows minus 4, okay? As long as that's true, we're good. So for example, if I is less than or equal to rows minus 4, okay, and then I plus plus. Likewise, we'll do another thing here. Whoop. Inside, int j equals 0, while j is less than columns, less than or equal to columns minus 4. Okay, and then here we'll check for the 4 in a row. So these are our starting points. As long as rows and columns allow space for a 4 in a row, we should check that 4 in a row path. All right, so that's what we're doing here. So this this set of values here in our image corresponds to this black rectangle, right? These are all the points that we're going to be starting from. So since rows is 6, we're going to go from row 0 to 2, because 2 is 6 minus 4. Likewise, in columns, we're going to start at 0 and go to C3, because 3 is 4 less than our number of columns, which is 7. Okay, now for each of those, that's strange. Oh, I was trying to figure out why I wasn't seeing why the columns hadn't blued out there. Okay, so for each one of those, we're just going to do a 4 in a row check. All right, we're going to start off by saying int streak equals 0. Okay, so for each of these is a starting point, and we're going to do the 4 in a row starting point from there. So we're actually going to need one more inner loop going along. Okay, so int streak equals 0. Okay, and int player equals 0. Just like we did before, we're going to assume it's an empty spot held by nothing. Okay, then along that path, we're going to do this. Another loop for k equals 0. Actually, we should do until we hit the end. So we should do while. We can do a do while. Let me just do it this way. While I is less than rows and j is less than columns. Okay, so basically we're going to check that 4 in a row and keep on looking at it, right? As long as I is less than row, j is less than columns. Oh shit, that's not going to work. Okay, so we are going to have to do, we'll do a k loop. We'll do a k loop. That's all right. I was thinking about how to do this. We're going to do an extra loop. So for int k equals 0, we're going to do a different thing. So, well, each one of these is just going to be 4, so that's fine. We're good. So, int 4, int k equals 0, k is less than 4, k plus plus. Okay, so we're going to check the 4 in a row path there. So we only need to check 4 things. So starting with this, we will say if, right, if k equals 0, actually, you know what, we can even bypass that. So we'll say int player equals board I j dot value. Okay, so and if this is a not 1 or 0, not 1 or 2, then we know we're done. Okay, so if player does not equal 0, then we do this loop. Otherwise, we don't need to. So I'm just going to bump that all in. Okay. So for all these, as long as k equals 0, we're going to say streak equals 1, okay? And player, we're going to say, what shall we do? We're going to increment I and j. So if player, what? Player equals, we're going to do board I plus k. I guess we could do streak equals 0. Equals I plus k, j plus k. Then we can say streak plus plus. Oh, that value. Okay, so here we're checking for 4 in a row. So we've initially said, right, read the player value from the board. Okay, wherever we're starting in this rectangle, we're reading that player's value. If that player, if that board spot isn't empty, check the whole path, right? Otherwise, we don't need to check the path. I'll make a note of that. Otherwise, there can't be a 4 in a row, right? Because we're only checking the 4-length path, we know that there can't be one. Okay, so if it's not 0, there's a player has moved there, so we're going to check the whole thing. So we're going to go starting from k equals 0, k is less than 4. Our initial streak is set to 0, and I guess I don't need to do that. That's redundant with what I already have. Okay. If player matches the next location, right? Update streak, increment streak, because we found one more. And we can say the first match will be, we can update that. Okay, the first match will be k plus 1. We'll start at k equals 1 and do k last will be, the first match check will be the next square. Okay, so we're going to start off, we might as well say streak equals 1. So if we don't do anything with that, that doesn't matter. Okay, so set streak to 1, because if we don't start a streak, we'll discard it anyway. Okay, so this should work. This is what we're doing. We're checking the path. So if as long as we find 3 more things in a row, then we're done. So at the end, if what? If streak is greater than 3, we're going to return the player, right? So at that point, if we find a 4 in a row, streak is greater than 3, and we return the player value. Okay, so if streak is greater than 3, return player. Okay, otherwise we just skip on and go to the next one. All right, so all we're doing here with this method, or with this part of the method, every one of these squares here becomes a starting point, right? So however many squares there are in here, I guess 12, because we're going up to C3. Each one of those is a starting point, and we're going down this way 4 in a row and checking if we find a continuous 4 in a row sequence. Okay, the other part is going to be pretty much the same. So I'm going to basically copy all this and edit it slightly. And this is going to go in my lower left to upper right. I know I have a P there. Upper right victory checks. Boom. So in all this, let's see. Okay, so our starting points again, as long as our rows and columns allow space for 4 in a row. Well, here we're starting someplace different, right? In the rows, we're starting at rows minus 1. Or if you want to, we could do rows minus 3 would be the, we would start at 3, I guess. So we would start I equals 3, and we'll do as long as I is less than rows. Right? Because if rows is 6, then that's a problem and we're going to crash. Likewise, for the j, right, initially we're going to start at j equals 0 for our column, and we're going to go through as long as j is less than or equal to the number of columns. So that's the same thing, right? Columns minus 4. So we're going to stop at 3 because 3 is the last spot where we have 4 in a row to continue to the upper right. Okay, again, our streak starts at 1. And our player is going to be that initial ij value. That's fine. Same thing, if that board isn't empty, check the whole path. If player's not 0, we're going to check the 4 in a row path. Okay, so we're going to check the next 4. However, in this case, although the rows will be going this way, so they'll be getting smaller values, the columns will still be increasing from left to right. So the column value with j increases, but the I value decreases. Okay, so row is next lower value, so use I minus k, not I plus k. Okay, so that's it. That's what we're doing. And again, same thing. If then streak plus plus. If we find 4 in a row, streak is greater than 3, we turn the player value. Okay, so I'm cautiously optimistic that this is correct. Let's give it a try. Let's actually run this code. So we're going to try to do some 4 in a rows here, okay? You're with me? Okay. Now bear in mind, there we go, that even if this works or doesn't work, whatever, it doesn't necessarily prove anything. All it does, so here's the real test right here. There we go. It doesn't prove that it's absolutely correct, but what it does do is at least that part of it works. We would need to do more exhaustive testing to make sure that everything is correct. Okay, but it seems to work. We're cautiously optimistic. Let's do a lower, right? We'll do another one. We'll do a what, upper left to bottom right. Whoop. Let's see if that, there we go. And that works. Okay, so like I said, cautiously optimistic that this works. So what have we done? We have implemented our diagonal victory check. So again, we figured out, we know that we need to check for a 4 in a row. We figured out the places on the game board where the 4 in a row can start. And on each of those places, we check the rows and columns. So this is how we've mapped our array conceptually. And we're just checking sequentially along the rows and columns of our array. Okay, so the next thing, what we wanted to do a victory screen, right? So suppose I want to change the structure of my screen, right? I can do that with another base panel. So I can do this. I can say victory screen panel. Okay, so I can do this. I could say J panel JP victory base. Okay, and on that, I'm going to add a J button JB rematch. Okay, and those are the only 2 components I'm going to have. I'm going to have some text on there. I guess I'll do a J label. J, which is just some, you can use text or images. I'll just do some text. J label, I'll call it, oh, that shouldn't be JB, that should be JP. Okay, JP. And JL, victory message. Okay, so these are the 3 components. Now what I'm going to do with this, let's get rid of this. Okay, so initially, I have the game board screen. Okay, after a victory, I want to rebuild the screen with one panel containing a label and a button. Okay. Then number 3, after the button is clicked, because that's going to be the rematch button, restore the game board screen. Okay, that's what we want to do. Now, in Java, this takes a little extra twisting. So some GUI elements, we can just change their attributes and they'll automatically update, like a JFrame title. Okay, all we have to do is change that text and we'll change it. Others, like our custom JPanels, we need to call the repaint method to force their graphics to be redrawn. Okay. Others, like rebuilding what's called the hierarchy, right? The object hierarchy on the frame, require a call to the validate method to acknowledge the rebuild. And this can seem very confusing at first, right? You're like, why do I have to do this stuff all the time? But the goal is to do only the necessary work to accommodate the changes. So if you're not actually changing the hierarchy, right, the way that the components are added to the frame, you don't need to call validate. That's kind of a big overhead thing. And if you're running like an actual game where you want things to happen really quickly, you don't want to be doing this rebuild over and over. Likewise, repaint, there are some things that are just inherently attributes and are periodically refreshed automatically as part of that method call, like set title, for example, automatically calls repaint to draw that entire frame. But other things don't necessarily do that. You don't want to have to call repaint every time you change anything on the frame. So some things require these method calls and some don't. Rebuilding the GUI tree like we're going to do, that requires calling validate. So we're going to do this. We're going to set up a method call in here. Let's call it victory. We'll just toss it down here at the end. After all these, yeah. We'll call it void victory. And we're not going to do anything with this. We can get this. We get int winner, which will be the just need to send along the player number who won. Okay, so that's what we're going to do. So this, we got a few things we got to do. So we're going to rebuild our tree. Okay, so the first thing, we're going to do JP base. We're going to swap that out. Okay, so we're going to remove that. We're going to keep that structure intact. So this dot remove JP base. So JP base, which is our base panel and all the things on it, as I recall, that's how we did it. Let me make sure that that's correct. Yeah, it's got the box layout. All the stuff on JP base, that's still going to exist as part of JP base's tree. It's like we're pulling out a drawer from the file cabinet. We're keeping all the stuff in the drawer where it is, but we're taking that drawer out. Okay, so we're removing that. Then we're going to add this dot add, and we're going to add JP victory base. Okay, and we're going to do some stuff with that. So we're going to say JP victory base equals new JPanel. We could set a victory color. I don't know, what's a good victory color? Like orange, I guess, sure. JP victory base dot set background, I don't know. Let's do orange. Orange, fine. We like capitals. Okay, and then we're going to add that. And then we could also do the same with the button. So we'll do JL, I'm going to do this dot JL victory message equals new J label player plus winner plus wins. Okay, and then down below that, so I'll add that JP victory base dot add JL victory message, and then we're going to add the button. So JB rematch equals new J button, and we'll give it the initial text rematch. Okay, and then we'll add that. So we'll add JP victory base dot add JB rematch. One last thing we're going to do. Let's we're going to set this. Well, we'll leave it for now. Let's make sure this all looks correct, and then we're going to do the validate. We're going to do this dot validate. Okay. So rebuild the GUI component hierarchy. Here I'm going to say remove the old JP base panel, and here add the victory panel and components. Okay, so let's see how this goes. So save it, and if a victory happens, we're going to run it. So where does this victory check go? So we have our reset. That's what we call it, but instead let's do it. Let's call it victory. Yeah, we can come back to the reset thing if somebody presses the button. Okay, I mean, I could test all this in one, but it's better to just test in small. The method's not called victory. Oh, we got to send the winner. Where have I done this? Where have I called? Game end is not. Oh, yeah. So we're checking game end, right? So let's do this. We'll say int winner equals game end. And we'll say if winner does not equal 0, no, we're just going to call victory with the winner. Okay. So let's see how that goes. We're going to try to have a game get one here, and we'll go to the victory screen. Sorry, this thing is a little, there we go. I don't know why it's so reluctant. Oh, there we go. See, we got our screen. Hooray. Now the font isn't that big. We'll talk about fonts a little later, but we have our rematch button. If we wanted to, we could just do rematch. But in this case with the rematch, we have to rebuild our GUI again. Okay, so let's put in a button check for that. So good thing is the only time we're going to see that button for rematch, right, is going to be, where's my button method? The only time we're going to see that rematch button is if a game has been won. So where do we have that? There it is, action performed. Okay, so else if this, and here I'm going to add another one, else if event.getSource equals JB rematch. Okay, in that case, I'll just call out the reset button. Okay, so I can do this same as JB start. I could do this same thing really, but here I need to rebuild it. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to cut all this code. I'm going to put it into this method, right? This reset method. That repaints it. Did I want to do anything different with that? JB start. Does this all look the same? Oh no, so I do reset. This is, oh, that's the cancel, right? So I set it back to connect 4, so that's not what I want to do. Let's do restart. I'm going to do a restart method and put it in here. Okay, so void restart. Okay, so here I'm going to borrow all this code, same as pressing the start button. I knew it was in there somewhere. Okay, so we're going to do this basic stuff, game in progress, but we got to do a couple other things. We first got to rebuild our panel, right? So we got to do this dot remove, and the thing we're going to remove is JP victory base, because we don't need that anymore, right? We want to remove that. So remove the victory panel. Okay, then we're going to add, right, restore the game panel. Okay, this dot add, we're going to add JP base, which should all be the same way. Okay, should have all those things. We're going to fill out the game board. Okay, so all of those, I mean, 0 for the game board. We're also going to set out their value also be 0. So board I j dot value equals 0. Okay, so clear board squares. Clear, just say clear the board squares. That's fine. And then at the end, right, we have to set the, we have to set that it's player one's turn to go. So P1 turn will equal true. Okay. Let me find out where that was. Restart, yeah. So then P1 turn equals true. And then we should be ready to go. So as long as I've set that in here, if the restart button, oh yeah, restart. Let's see how this goes. Hopefully this all works well and I don't have to spend much time debugging it. Okay, so we're going to try to get a game going here. Sometimes it's the clicking leaves a lot to be desired. Maybe I have a problem with my wireless too. I don't know. There we go. Let's do a rematch. Oh, something didn't. Oh, I didn't add my listener. Okay, I got to do that. So JB rematch. JB rematch dot add action listener. This. Okay, so I'm going to set that button to respond now through the J frame, through the Connect 4 frame. Okay, let's try that again. A new game. There we go. Rematch. Oh, I didn't like that. I think I'm going to have to do something a little different to fix this. It doesn't, it's kind of hung up there. Let's see what's going on. So this value, that stuff is shown correctly. Let's see if the event source is JB rematch, it's going to restart. What doesn't it like? So we're going to remove the victory base. That's good. We're going to add JP base, game color C, board I. Everything's getting frozen. Let's see. That's strange. Okay. Well, I'm going to have to dig through a little bit. It doesn't seem like there should be anything too bad for that. But, I mean, did I not validate? Oh, shit, I never validated it. Well, no wonder. Okay, so I got to do that. I forgot to validate it. I mean, it's not very complicated code at this point. There's not too many things that can go wrong. Okay, we're going to try this for the last time, and hopefully everything works. There we go, rematch, come on. No, doesn't like that. What is going on here? Well, I'm going to have to figure out some stuff with this. This it says game in progress, so we fixed that. But there was a game in progress before. Why is that not? It doesn't like that. Well, I could always just go the cheesy route and rebuild the entire screen, so I could do that. I mean, I guess we could do that. I could just, one of the things that you sometimes do is just include this entire line here, right? But you shouldn't have to do this. You should all just, I'm going to try to cheese it then. Okay, let's see. Let's see if this, like I said, it shouldn't be necessary, but something is here that doesn't really want to work. Okay, so all this, my restart, validate, set title. Let's see. Okay, I'm just looking here. This I don't want to do. I mean, I guess I can, but I just, I really don't want to. All right, I'm going to temporarily freeze this. Let's see how this goes. All right, so sometimes you run into these little weird snags that could take a little while to figure out what happened. There we go. Rematch. No. Something else. I'm not sure what. I'm going to have to poke around and figure out what's up here. Okay, but this seems like a good point to break off anyway. I'm sure I'll have it done. I'll figure out shortly what went wrong, and I'll post up some working code to Blackboard, and this will be it. So I'm going to take a break here. I'm going to stop the sharing, but if people have questions, I'm happy to discuss. Otherwise, we'll resume on Wednesday. Wednesday, we'll actually start doing the formal lecture on GUIs, and then next week we'll cover graphics and all the stuff that I've talked about in this Connect 4 example. We'll see, you know, basically the standards behind all that, and then at the end of next week, then we can go back and dig through the code, and I'll explain through everything again. This is why I did what I did and how it makes sense. Okay, so you'll be getting this GUI stuff, you know, 3 different times if you show up for all of it. Okay, any questions on any of this? Any questions on the code? Let me bring back the share screen again. Otherwise, that's all I got. But if you have any questions, now would be the time to ask. Anything?
Professor?
Yeah.
Would this be an example of what we would need to do for our big homework of application?
You would not have to do something this big.
Okay.
Yeah. In 401, you would probably do something bigger. Way back when I took 401, it was my introduction to Java like 16 years ago. The first week of class, they basically, you know, the assignment was given to make a tic-tac-toe app in Java. And so, yeah, in 401, you might, you know, they spend a week like doing a rehash of what the data types are, but then boom, they just throw you into the deep end of the pool and figure you can start swimming. But this is 401, so it won't be that cruel.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. But I'll have you do something in a GUI. What I will most likely do, although I haven't written the assignment, what I'm thinking about doing is if you've looked at module assignment 3, that's about doing some database type stuff with employees. Basically, some of that is going to be ported to a GUI application. So instead of doing it through text commands, you're going to be doing it with GUI elements.
Okay, thanks.
Sure. Anything else? All right, well, that's all I got then. Everybody have a good day. Enjoy the rest of your Monday. And I'll see many of you on Wednesday, I suppose. So long.